Welcome to Tellypathic, your visit to the world of episodic telly, with a strong backbone of Star Trek. We're your two hosts who are mad about telly, Mark and Gary. Hi, Gary.
Hey, Mark. How's it going?
Not bad, not bad. Looking forward. We're still in the world of Star Trek because that's what we do, really. As we say in our intro, it's very strong Star Trek sort of bent on this particular podcast. So we're talking about Star Trek. Your choice. Do you want to tell everyone what we're going to be covering?
Yep. My choice. So I've taken us to one of the best episodes of Star Trek, like ever. And I just wanted to talk about it. So this is season 5, episode 25 of TNG, The Inner Light.
Yeah, this is a classic. This is a classic. And I always get the name wrong. I always think it's just called Inner Light, but it is The Inner Light. I don't know why I get that wrong, but I always do. Such a solid episode, a very memorable episode. I feel like even people that don't watch Star Trek might remember this one, or occasional watchers. It's one of those.
Yeah.
It's a good episode of telly, not just Star Trek. That's the thing.
It's just a great story. Yeah, but we'll get into it. Yeah,
certainly. Give us a plot summary, please.
All right, as quick as I can then. So the episode opens with the Enterprise captures it picks up a probe signal. And the Enterprise investigates, as they do, and they see that it's like an older probe. It runs off fuel or propulsion engines. It's not like warp capable or anything. And it then tracks the Enterprise almost. It follows the Enterprise's every movement.
Yeah,
and then it fires like a beam, and they're shields up. Oh my god, this probe's attacking us. And this beam goes straight through the shields, straight to the bridge, and into Picard's head.
Yes.
And he hits the deck. He hits the deck pretty hard. And then the episode just cuts to black, and Picard wakes up. He's in a house, and a woman's there, and she's like, "Oh, you're waking up." And Picard's like, "Where the hell am I?" And then it cuts to our title card. So it hits us straight with the mystery. Where the hell is Picard?
Yeah. I mean, a typical opener, they always kind of build some sort of basically a page turner, but it is obviously we're not on a book before the episode starts. And then what's it about? There you go. Right.
Yeah, exactly. And so Picard, once we're past the credits, he's sort of in civilian clothes. He's in normal people clothes. He's in it's not really a hut, is it? It's kind of
it's like a Spanish adobe or Mexican village kind of look, isn't it? The whole place.
Yeah,
it's got that look. Yes,
exactly. It's still definitely the future, from our perspective. It's not a 20th century place, but it's definitely not the Enterprise. Let's put it that way. Technology-wise. And so Picard is like, "Where am I? Who are you?" It's pretty great, actually. I really enjoy the inquisition he gives this poor lady.
Yeah.
Why have you got me here?
He thinks he's a prisoner almost, doesn't he?
That's right.
Well, first he's on a holiday. His first reaction is he's on a holiday.
Yeah, that's right.
He's like, program off, right? And all
exactly. He's like, he tries to kill the program. So then after a while, he realizes that he's not going to get any answers out of her, so he just leaves.
Yeah.
He's like, "Can I leave?" And she's like, "Well, you shouldn't. You've been in bed for 2 weeks. You should rest." And he's like, "No, I'm gone. Bye." And he just walks around, and he's looking at this community. There's a drought problem. He picks this up as he's walking around the village. There's a drought problem happening.
Yeah.
And he meets somebody in town who's like, "Oh, you're out of bed. How are you feeling?" And he's like, "Sorry, I don't know who you are. I don't know where I am." And the guy's like, "Oh no, he must be really sick."
Yeah.
Still, so he's almost embodied a person who used to exist or does exist, and Picard's kind of entered this person's life almost.
Yeah.
And he kind of picks up on this.
Yes.
And he starts using it. He's like, "Oh, let's pretend that I'm, I've just kind of forgotten things a little bit. What planet is this?" He starts to try and placate them a little bit. and play along to get some
Yeah.
information.
Yeah.
He starts asking them about
how do they communicate, all that sort of stuff.
That's right. How would you send a message across the planet? Do you go to other planets? Things like that. And everybody's looking at him like, what? But he does it really well. Anyway, he finds out, this friend is his friend Batai, and they're actually been best mates.
Yeah.
In his previous life, and he finds out that the planet is Catan, and he's in a town called Northern Resic or something like that. And he immediately knows it's not a Federation planet. He sort of does this thing in his head, and he's like, not a Federation planet.
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool. And then he goes exploring. So he just leaves the town and just goes hiking, basically. So just to see it, presumably to test the holodeck theory or to test some sort of boundary or limits, if there is any.
Yeah.
To this thing that he's in. But he then shows up back at the house that he started with the lady.
Yeah. And I like the line he says, "I'm tired and hungry," so that must mean this isn't a dream, or this
yes,
is real.
That's right.
So there's,
or at least real enough, right?
Yeah.
And he finds out this lady is his wife.
And she says, "Come to bed," and he goes, "No, I'd rather," he doesn't understand where he is, so he's saying, I'll sleep with her. And she goes, "No, please come to bed." And he's like, "Look, I'm still recovering,
exactly.
I'll just be tossing and turning and keep you awake. And she goes, let me sort of be the judge of that." It's quite affectionate. It's quite a good interaction.
Yeah, she obviously cares. It doesn't seem suspicious.
Yeah.
But obviously to Picard, it's strange. And she cooks him his favorite meal, allegedly, and he loves it.
Well, he says it's delicious, and she says, "You always say that," which is a great little touch in the script.
Yeah, lovely
It's full
touch.
of those. It's full of those.
Anyway, so he sort of, he then says, we can make. Can I make an off-world message, please? And she's like, "Yeah, we can do that tomorrow." And he's like, "Great." So he's kind of trying to come up with some kind of plan, I guess, to try and get back to the Enterprise. And then just before that sort of scene closes, he catches that she's wearing a necklace.
Yes.
And he notices that the necklace is the shape of the probe, which lasered him right at the start.
Yes.
And he's like, "Where did you get this?" And she's like, "You gave it to me, like my birthday or something."
Yeah.
And he's like, "Oh, okay." So then, anyway, it cuts back to the Enterprise. And Picard's polaxed. He's completely catatonic on the bridge. The doctors are trying to figure out what's up. They're like, "Oh, there's nothing physically wrong with him. There's nothing. His brain is in overdrive, but he's physically okay." And Worf's like, "Well, the phasers are ready to go," and the doctor's like, "Well, yeah." The doctor's like, "Well, we don't know what will happen if you just sever this link that's been created. Like the link, the laser beam is still sort of hooking up to the probe." So the doctor's like, "We can't say what will happen." And Riker's like, "Okay, let's just wait for a second." And then it cuts back to Picard. And it's like a 5-year skip. So in Picard's head, it's been 5 more years. And he's still got a clear memory of being the captain of the Enterprise.
Which he won't, clearly hasn't let go.
He hasn't let go for 5 years. He's tried to, everything he can, it seems, anyway. He's tried to he's told Elaine, his wife, about his previous life and everything like that. But he's at a point almost where he's almost sort of accepting it, and he's becoming part of the community.
Yeah, and his wife actually makes the point. I've waited 5 years for you to come back to me. It's about time you did. I know that you've got this thing you believe, but it's time to sort of move on now, kind of thing. Which I guess he accepts from how everything turns out, right?
Yeah, which is it's interesting that he's taken 5 years to sort of identify that this is a prison that's not necessarily bad, but you can't really escape it. You might think about it that way, or he might just think, actually, no, it was a however he rationalizes it, you can definitely see that he's sort of easing himself into the community, I guess.
Yeah.
That he finds himself in. We get the flute. He gets gifted a flute.
Yes.
Because apparently he loves music, or whoever he used to be loves music, but was terrible at playing the flute. And you can see that Picard has sort of leaned into this and is like actually learning to play the flute properly and actually enjoys it.
Yeah.
There's a lovely scene where him and Bataille are chilling on the porch, and he's playing his flute and they're having a couple of beers. And it's like late at night, and you can definitely feel it's a completely different Picard to what we have seen ever. I think in all of TNG, we never see him relax like that.
Yeah.
Yes. But yeah, it's a lovely little scene, and you can see sort of he's getting more immersed into this life. He's getting involved in the drought that's happening. Almost like Fremen tech. He's sort of suggesting things like we can use generators to take moisture out of the atmosphere, and we can use that to sort of solve our drought problem. And he's clearly using his Federation captain brain to try and solve some of these more local problems, which everyone seems to appreciate, and they're just kind of eating that up. And then it cuts. Go on, sorry.
No, go carry on.
It then quickly cuts back to Riker, and Riker's like, I'm going to make the call. It's been like 5 minutes. The doctor's not making any progress. Let's cut the cord. Let's see what happens. And as soon as he does that, he starts dying. Picard immediately starts dying.
Yeah.
And the doctors are pissed. They're like, he is going to die. And you can see it on Beverly's face. She's like, I don't suggest you do this. And then Riker's like, well, I'm doing it because we need to save the captain. And then, he almost dies. But the doctor's, Data, I think, reestablishes the link. Okay.
Yeah.
And the doctors are pissed, but they're happy that he's alive. So anyway, and then we cut again. And it's been a heckin' a lot of years.
Well, just getting older and older, and I like how his hair is getting more and more dishevelled and long. Right?
Yeah. It cuts to him playing the flute really well, I might add, at his son's birthday. And he's named his son after Bataille, his old friend, who has now died.
Yeah.
And he has a daughter who is 6 years old already. So we are jumping deep into time, and he is a pillar of the community at this point.
But he's also a scientist now, isn't he? He's trying to work out stuff.
That's right. He's trying to figure out the core. I think he's already solved it. To be honest, it's a bit of a spoiler for later, but I think he's already solved it by this point. But he's at least confirming his suspicions at this point in science. But yeah, he's completely in this life, right? He's had kids at this point, 2 kids. He's got lots of friends. And he says the great line, which sort of is a playback almost to episode 1, which we talked about. He says to Elaine, "There's a point in my life where I could never dream living with children, or being with children, and now I can't imagine life without them."
Yes,
which is incredible line.
Yes, and it's creates a poignancy to the very end of the episode too.
Yes, indeed it does, which we'll get to. So then we get another huge time skip. So we skip again to his daughter is an adult. She herself has become a scientist.
Yeah.
And followed in his footsteps. He obviously trained her in classical, maths and science, and she's followed in his footsteps. And she has come to the conclusion that their planet is dying. It's not just a bad drought; it's end times.
It is.
The sun is dying, and the planet along with it.
And I get the sense at this point, Jean-Luc realizes that's happened, and he's just living for the day, living for the moment, right? He's just
Yes,
living
indeed.
because he knows there's nothing they can do. He's hiding his sadness somewhat.
Yeah, and he says again, it's a fantastic line. He says to his daughter, "What about that boy that you've been seeing? He seemed nice." And she's like, "Well, he's not as important as my work." And he's like, "Well, think about the work that you've just identified. Seize the time, make the most of it. The precious time now will never come again." Which is a fucking awful thing to have to tell your daughter.
Yeah,
I can't imagine it personally. It's a really heavy thing to say. Like, time is now very, very precious. You haven't got time for just work. Go live your life, because this is, it's going to be over soon, which is really heavy stuff.
yeah. It's interesting. It feels like the work of an older writer, and I don't know how old the person who wrote this episode was, but it feels like it's someone who has lived life, is channeling that into this dialogue and mood as well. Yeah.
Yeah, which is interesting. And so it skips forward a little bit more into back onto the Enterprise. Geordie and sort of Data and stuff have like identified where the probes come from, and it's from a system that was wiped out 1,000 years ago from their current star date.
Yeah.
Which obviously we now have figured it out. We then jump to Picard, almost in his Scrooge costume at this point. He's like super ultra old.
Yeah.
And his son, who's grown up into a man who loves art and not science. And Picard's a little bit grumpy about it, but then he's ultimately like, who am I to get in the way of doing what he loves, and it's music, and I love music too.
Yeah.
So that's all fine. We then find out that the government, he tries to tell the government that the planet is dying, and turns out the government already knew. They were like, yeah, we came to the same conclusion years ago.
Yeah.
But what are we going to do? We're not advanced enough to survive it. But we've come up with something that may help us survive, and Picard kind of doesn't. He's like, well, okay. He then loses his wife. His wife dies.
He passes away. Yeah, good scene. Great scene.
Yeah, great scene, heavy scene. It then skips a little bit more again, and he's a little bit older again, and his daughter has a child, so he's playing with his grandson, kind of on the floor.
Really like this scene. They really work well together. And actually, I did notice at the end credits the kid's name was Stuart. So I wonder if this is his son or family member.
Yeah, the son is Patrick's, like the adult son is actually Patrick Stewart's son.
Oh, I misunderstood. I thought that.
Yeah.
I misunderstood the credits. I thought it was the grandson. Well, whatever. If that kid wasn't related to him, they obviously he spent some time with a kid, bonding with a kid, because there's absolutely nothing false about that interaction. It feels like Elliot
it's great.
Enjoying themselves with a grandparent. It does feel like that.
Yeah. And then his daughter comes in, and she's get ready for dinner or whatever. We're going out to watch the launch, and Picard's like, what launch? Nobody's talking to me about.
I don't want to see a launch. Proper man. Yes.
Yeah, he's like, I can't be bothered with that.
Our favourite bit. Yeah.
But then he does have a wistful moment where he watches the grandson leave the room, and he sort of tells his daughter, it breaks his heart that he'll never grow up to live a life that he deserves to have, which breaks my heart while I was watching the episode.
Yeah.
And then the sort of launch of this probe is about to happen, and Bataille shows up. Bataille, who died, years and years ago. And the probe kind of reveals to him that he's essentially been living in a simulation of what life was like on this in this community, in this culture, and that he was, the purpose of the probe was to sort of portray a sense of living and a sense of community and a sense of who these people were, and give it to him so he could pass it on to others. So this keeps the civilization alive in, memories and story's sake, rather than through any way that would survive. The annihilation via the sun.
It's just leaving a memory behind. Yes.
Yeah. So then the probe sort of just shuts down, and Picard wakes up on the bridge, and it's been like he asks the doctor how long he's been out for, and he's like 20, 25 minutes, something like that.
Yeah.
And you can see he's like relieved to be back, but he's shocked. He's visibly shaken.
Well, he's essentially got to learn how to be a captain again, hasn't he?
Well, yeah, we can talk about this later. Yeah, let me just quickly. I'll just quickly wrap up. So then he then he's back on the bridge. It's sort of an indeterminate amount of time. It's not clear how long has been from the bridge incident to when he's in his ready room. You can see him walking amongst the artifacts that he's collected. Riker shows up and says, "Look, we took the probe on board. It's completely dead. It's shut down. However, there was a box inside, and inside the box, he just gives it to Picard, and he opens it, and Picard looks mortified. So Riker just leaves. He nods his head and leaves.
Yeah.
And inside the box is the flute, which Picard holds to his chest, and you can see he's visibly upset. And then he plays it out to end the episode.
Yes,
he plays.
And we even see a shot of the Enterprise through space, but hear the him playing the flute,
playing it out
over the top. Yes.
Yeah. So this is one of the few episodes of Star Trek that makes me cry almost every time I watch it. I think, not afraid to admit it. I cry almost every time I watch this episode, and I feel like it's got worse since I've become a dad myself.
Yeah, there's a very difficult time to watch stuff like this when you're a new parent. I've had similar experiences. Talking about a story that's kind of similar to this, and I'll talk about it later. When I was reading it for the first time, when I became a parent for the first time, and I remember how affecting it was. So I kind of sympathise, and I understand, because I've been through something very similar. It's, to me, it doesn't make me cry. What I find though is it's a very immersing episode. You kind of you watch it and you can't really take your mind or eyes away from it. It just absorbs you, right? You're not looking at your phone, you're not looking around, you're not wondering what the time is, you're just watching it. And it floods, it's a flood. The only time it does break, I think, is when it goes back to the Enterprise. But they had to do that. And sometimes it annoys me a bit, and I was like, they shouldn't have gone back so early, they should have let this continue. But actually, watching it again, I think it was very well balanced. I think they balanced it just right. They definitely had to go back to the Enterprise to contextualize it. But I wonder what the episode will be like if it was just that, and then he only got back to the Enterprise right at the end, so we didn't see any Enterprise stuff. That would have been really intense, wouldn't it? Actually,
it would have been.
And probably
if I had to give a complaint. My only complaint about this episode really is almost the end. When obviously it's an episodic TV show. We love episodic telly, right? That's why we love Star Trek.
Yeah.
It's the issue of him coming back to service, right? I think it's unclear whether he really did live, 70 years or so in real time in his brain, or if it was just like memory implants of specific events that he has now.
Yeah. For example, could he remember what we saw was very brief? Is that all he can remember? Or is
exactly. Did he live? Because in a later episode, right, he has a love interest and they play music together, and he even gets the flute out, which, as we now know, it means the world to him, right?
Yeah.
they're playing music, and he confesses to her that it was a lifetime. But again, it's kind of unclear whether he really lived it, or like you say, he has the snippets that he remembers. Because if he's just on the Enterprise, he's not going to remember his security codes. Captain security codes, that was 70 years ago.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, that's true. What I will say is the literary influence on this, and there's a few. This story has been sort of done before. This approach has been done before, and I think there was enough in this episode. And talking about his literary influences, it doesn't matter. It's as far as he's concerned, he lived that life, right?
Yeah,
is how I feel, and that's not just me saying that. That is, you can tell in the writing that they're talking about shared histories. He's seen these children grow. He's not just jumped from them being to kids to adults. He's learning. He's getting wisdom. He's learned to accept what's happening rather than rail about it. And that all comes from age and experience. So to me, in some respects, it doesn't matter. Obviously, he hasn't taken 70 years, right, to get there, because it's all happened in 25 minutes while he's been unconscious. But in terms of experiences, I think he lived a lifetime. That's how.
Yeah, I guess I'd wanted almost a little point made to say it's taken him a while to come back to be captain.
Yes.
Because later episodes address the fact that he's essentially changed. He completely changed. He's like you say, he's lived a lifetime. He's a different man after this episode.
Yeah,
and I feel like they work that in well in later episodes. But because it's episodic telly, right? He's just the captain in the next episode. Yeah, and it's like, brother, you just essentially lived a whole life. I'd expect some downtime.
Yeah. In some respects, it's a bit like Groundhog Day, right? It's a bit like Groundhog Day in that, you're the same person at the end, but you've lived an entire, some people talk about Groundhog Day, that he may have lived for 10,000 years in that film. We do not know. We just do not know. And in that respect, Picard has had, I don't know, 50 years, 60 years, or whatever it is.
I'd say at least 60, 70. I think that I would have just liked a little nod to that at the end of the episode, be it like, that scene in the ready room, like, just mentioning that he's had, some therapy or retraining or something, just to acknowledge the fact that this would really
there could have been
up.
something with Troy. There could have been something with Troy. Actually, she would have been actually quite good to have at this point.
But I get why they didn't. They
maximize the time he was with those people. What I find really interesting in they did all this so someone would remember them and and remind people. He doesn't do that. He keeps it to himself. It's very personal to him. So that's interesting, right? He doesn't actually...
I suppose it's never mentioned. I think, if I know Picard like I think the show portrays him, I think he almost certainly, records this to the Federation, right? Like, there's no shot he doesn't enter it into archives.
No, maybe.
Really?
But we get no hint of that.
We don't know hint.
Not in later episodes.
Not talked about at all.
Even later series, like Picard, he talks about the events or it talks about what happened, but he doesn't go into detail. He's not said, there was this race called so-and-so on this planet, so-and-so, and they lived this kind of life. Talking about the actual look and feel of the planet, it did remind me a lot of how the look and feel, they kind of reuse this look and feel in Star Trek Insurrection. Somewhat, I feel.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah,
it kind of looked it. That's obviously a lesser thing than this episode, but I feel like they reused it a bit for that. Some elements of it, anyway. In terms of the literary stuff, I've already mentioned. It really strongly reminds me of a famous kind of short story. I think it's a short story by Ambrose Bierce called "Occurrence at Owl Creek," where a guy is about to be hung right? But he
Right.
manages to get away at the last minute, fall into a river, and get home. But his journey home is really weird. And at the very last instance, he's managed to get home to his wife. As he's about to hug his wife, he feels his neck snap, and he never escaped
Right.
at all. He got hung.
Yeah.
It was all in
Yeah.
his mind while he was doing. And I've read comics where people feel like they've invented a time machine and they live a whole life, and then it turns out they're just drowning, right? And then
Right.
the one I was talking about that affected me, that really reminds me of this, is in the Stephen King book Pet Sematary. There's a
Yeah.
bit where the main character, his son, is running towards a road with a big truck, and he's trying to grab him, and he grabs him at the last minute and pulls him back, and then there's like 5-6 pages of how their life developed and how he was a successful man. You know, he was successful in college, and he was proud of his son growing up, and he got to see him have his own family. But then he wakes up and he realizes he didn't grab his son in time. It was all in a fever of, despair.
Yeah.
So that kind of reminds me of this too. So he imagined a whole lifetime, but it didn't happen.
Yeah.
It was just his way of dealing with that sort of trauma. And this reminds me of those things. And you can imagine reading that. If you read that now, that would be don't.
Yeah.
Do yourself a favor.
Yeah, it's an interesting. I think it's an interesting philosophical question, right? Like it's part of the human experience, right? To find love and experience loss.
Yes.
But we ain't meant to carry it on, right?
Yes.
So he has these children. He has a wife. He has kids. He has grandkids. He loses all of them. Right? They are effectively dead. But
he's
in
alone
his mind,
at the end, right?
Yeah, they are real people, and he knew, it's a horrible thought, and he's just on that bridge, right? And it's basically he's in his little office, and he has artifacts. He's surrounded by artifacts of civilizations long gone, right? He's interested in art, in history and things.
Yeah.
But he's got this flute, right? Which is the only real artifact that he has like physical connection to. I don't think man is meant to have that, right? I don't think we are meant to experience that.
No.
So it's a heavy thing that he has. It's a huge psychological. Like the man is a psychological beast to be able to sustain this and then carry on being a leader. The episode breaks my heart in 3 places. It's when he's talking to his daughter and he's saying like, go live your life because it's over. It's get end game. And he's trying to have an adult conversation, and keep it professional with his daughter about talking about such a serious thing. And it's like, so, I couldn't imagine it. So well acted by both people. Really, really well done. And then it breaks my heart again when, he's talking to her about the grandson and he's having a nice time with the grandson, the innocence of a child who doesn't know what's happening, the gravity of the situation, and you have to, life must go on, right? You have to persevere, and they've got to still enjoy what they have, and again that breaks it breaks my heart. And then when he stood on the bridge, and he sees it's the look on his face, and Patrick Stewart. He is the GOAT. But the look on his face when he sees the flute in that box, and a great moment from Riker, Jonathan Frakes. We all know that, right? When someone's upset, you can see it immediately, and you just I'm out, right? He does that great look, and he leaves, and then Picard's holds it to his chest. It's such a human thing, and Picard's so not that.
Yeah.
He's so clinical and down to business. We rarely see human Picard, and he's littered all throughout this episode. But that moment where he holds that thing to his chest, it's means the world to him. It's everybody he's just lost. The feeling must have been monumental. But yeah, it makes me cry when it plays out.
In many respects, this is probably the most affecting thing to happen to Picard. Now we have other episodes were significant, the Borg stuff.
Minus Locutus, I'd say.
And also when he goes back to the family home and has issues with his brother, that's quite important. But this is a man living a life he probably would never lead for real.
Well, and this is it.
We're talking about June, if we don't, without new experiences, something inside us sleeps, right?
Yeah.
Picard has been woken up big time to what family life is about. And it must have affected, it must affect him. I'm just looking, I was just scanning through the Wikipedia, and I think a great summary of this comes from the Radio Times. Just a one-off comment from the Radio Times, but get this: the end. Talking about the ending, it's they say never has the dutiful captain looked so lonely. And that's it. He is lonely at the end. Don't mean he's feeling lonely. He is cut off from an entire life he's just lived, right?
And before the mission, right? He makes that point to many people that the Federation is his life. Again, is another reason why I hate Picard, the TV show, but we'll talk about that rant another time. He talks about how the Federation is his life. It's all he's ever needed. This is the family I need. My crew is my family. I don't like kids. They're annoying, actually. And then, this episode happens. And he fundamentally changes. He gets to live the life he never... something none of us... none of us will get that. Me and you are on this path. This is our life, right? He gets to live a completely different life.
It's like one of us waking up as a starship captain and having to live the whole life as that instead.
Yeah,
right?
We get to live this complete.
And probably be the same. You'd probably find tremendous satisfaction in it, but when it's over, you realise all the people you're never going to see, all the people you helped or did service to. It's probably less of a problem than the way Picard's done it, though. I mean, it must be hard. It would have been hard, right? This is
monumental.
His favourite episode, apparently, and I'm not surprised. I've got to say, I'm not surprised. Because he delivers. He's not overacting. He's so well balanced. What always cracks me up, not cracks me up. One I always get surprised is how actually blunt he is at the beginning, because I feel like. Oh, Picard wouldn't be this rude. She's saying, would you like some food? He's going, yes. But Picard would say, yes, please. Oh, that's very kind of you. But in this, it's like, yes. Because he's so disoriented, I put it down to. But,
I put it down to, I think he's kidnapped, right? I think he believes he's under some sort of duress at that point.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Tremendous episode all the way around. There's just lots of little touches. The way they age is done really well. The woman playing his wife is just works perfectly in my opinion. And his friendships and the little things. They look like they're going to develop. Like when he's saying to the government guy, we could build water, capture. Mechanisms and I thought that was going to lead into some sort of lesser,
saving the day,
or some lesser political intrigue. I'm glad it didn't. I'm glad it stayed the course as it is. It's a much stronger film episode for keeping simple and just being about living a family life. That's what it's about, really.
Yeah, and I love the little human touches again that they give Picard. Like he's notoriously leaves his shoes out, and his wife has to constantly pick them up and put them. Something that we'd never see it on the Enterprise.
Yeah.
Or the way that he goes out drinking with Patai, and stays out like late at night, and then comes back and leaves his shoes on the porch again. And he sits up and he plays the flute, and he says that I don't just like noodling on it. I'm surprised by how much I enjoy it.
Yes.
Which is almost an allegory for that whole life that he leads, right? He's not just surprised that he's living it, but he actually is surprised he enjoys it.
Again, it's kind of a similar ground to Groundhog Day, right? Where he can't get out of it. He starts to accept it, and he's spends time learning how to play the piano and trying to improve people's lives rather than be an arsehole, which he is at the beginning of that movie. He actually starts to realise he's getting satisfaction by helping people, even though it has no consequences because every day restarts, so it doesn't matter. But he's getting a satisfaction out of making people happy. Makes him happy, and because this episode is kind of like that, isn't it? The enrichment of a family, like, he's playing with his grandkids, right? He's raising his children to be happy. He's concerned with their happiness rather than what they do in many respects, right? Which is again a sign of aging and wisdom, right? You have to be accepting.
It's a really good point, right? Because not only has he gone from not liking kids, right, to having 2 children of his own that he raises and then raises grandchildren. He's giving them really solid life advice and life, really good advice to them. And he's raising great kids. The son obviously sort of drops out. He likes to change what he's interested in, and he wants to learn this and wants to learn that. And Picard, although he's a little bit annoyed because obviously he'd prefer they follow the steps of his daughter and be good at science. He's like, you know what? Who am I to get in the way of things, though? So he's a great dad. On top of that, like he grows into the role. Which is again, like when he comes back to the Enterprise, he's a completely different man.
I found the scene where he finally finds out what it's all about, where he sees the younger version of his wife and his friend at the end, and he doesn't play it as angry or relieved. No. It's more like overwhelmed, right?
He can't believe he can see them again. Yeah, you can see he cares about seeing them again, not what they're saying to him. Which and is, hey, this is,
yeah, and there's no like relief that this isn't real. This is just a put on for me. Is it? Except that's one of the things about it. It's not like that was all just some sort of beamed thing into my head. He's treating it like it's real, and we're as the audience directed for him to do that. This is a real thing. It's an experience he really lived through, and he treats it like that, right? He treats it like that.
Yeah, it's really good. I think Star Trek's done this kind of thing again, but it was much worse in the sense that the Chief in DS9 gets this experience, right? But
yes, he does. Yeah,
in like the worst way possible.
Episode, but it's not a bad episode. But it hasn't got a patch on this one, right?
Yeah, it deals with the other side of things, right? Like, so Chief's version is he gets caught being a spy, right, or a suspected spy. Gets put in jail for like 90 years or something, and he gets tortured throughout this whole time. And then he wakes up and he's been put in some sort of mind prison where he's only been in prison for like a day or something. But he's lived 90 years of torture. And then he just gets put back on DS9, and they're like, "Hey, can you fix the turbo lift, Chief?" And the episode deals with basically his PTSD of like trying to reintegrate himself back into that life. So they're almost talking about the stuff that Picard would have dealt with after the End of Light, but it's not quite as well done. It doesn't quite. It's still a great episode of DS9. But it's not a patch on Inner Light. But I just thought it was interesting that they'd done a similar thing later on, or at least tried to.
Yeah, I just thought it was a very well balanced script. Well, well developed, well acted. No
Yeah.
faults with the direction. Again, like I say, when I say watching, I was thinking, I wish they wouldn't cut away to the Enterprise at this point because it takes you out. It's almost like taking you out of what's going on. But by the end of it, I fully felt that they balanced it really well. I don't think they could have done better the way they did it.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty happy. This is one of the top next gen episodes for me. Though I haven't watched. I know there's others I really like, but I haven't watched them in a long time. So I want to get to a few others at some point, and then I can really compare it. But I do. It's an enthralling episode. It just engages you completely, and you don't really, apart from when it goes to the Enterprise, which is almost like a relief from. What the real drama going on, the family life stuff. No, not relief. That's the wrong word. It's a break, right? So it allows you to come out of it a bit. It's a bit like a comedic interval or an advert break almost from the real show.
It does resolve the mystery for you, though.
Yes,
I think there is at the very start of the episode, the mystery is still very much there. Picard, is this a program? Is this have I been transported somewhere? He's trying to figure it out, and as the audience, we're trying to do that with him. So there's almost that mystery solving we're doing together with Picard. But when it cuts back to the Enterprise, you go, "Oh, okay, this is the probe doing something to his brain," and it kind of resolves that mystery for you. Like you say, that's a really interesting idea of if you never show the Enterprise, do you then play into the mystery more throughout his life? Or do you just do what they did and just play out his life where he accepts it? It's an interesting take. I'm not sure which way I'd go with it, but
it does fall. I mean, we've talked about what flavors of episode are there, right? We talked about with Leroy.
Oh yeah.
This is one of them ones where people are put into some unusual situation,
anomaly.
Be it a place or an anomaly, and that could be an empty ship.
Episode,
it could be an empty ship. It can be in a place and time they don't recognize, or they do recognize, but they really shouldn't be there. There's lots of that in the original series too, right? So it's one of those, but probably the deepest of all of Star Trek, I'd say. But I haven't seen every episode of Star Trek, so I may not be correct there, but it just feels that way. Very solid episode. This was all the way around.
I'm good. I think this is my favorite episode of TNG. There is another few episodes which I'd like to talk about, which maybe when I watch them again, maybe I'll reevaluate. But I think this is my favorite episode of TNG.
Awesome.
It's really, really hard to compare it to some of my favorite episodes of TOS, just because it's almost apples and oranges in terms of the storytelling that this is telling, opposed to some of my favorite episodes of TOS and the types of stories they're telling and why I enjoy them so much. So you almost can't compare them.
The nearest I can think of to this was the one where Kirk loses his memory and ends up on a planet where he's almost like a Native American sort of environment. Do you remember? Do you know the one I'm talking about? That's the one that feels most like this to me. However, what I will say is I think that TOS is just generally more fun and less dramatic. It has drama, but it's kind of melodrama, right? And I'd say even the most dramatic episodes of TOS equate to the fun episodes of Next Gen. Does that make sense? It's kind of that's the levels we're talking about. It's a different band.
Deep stuff. There is some deep stuff in TOS though.
There is, and in some episodes, people don't really rate. I want to get to that at some point.
Yeah, we can talk about that.
I think that unbelievably important what they're saying, but they're dismissed as that wasn't a very good episode in a lot of places, and it's like, what the hell?
Yeah, we should talk about
the same thing. That's how I feel about some of those. But yes, should we wind this? Final thoughts on this one?
Yeah, so yeah, final thoughts. I think so.
Animal.
Like I say, this is one of my favorite episodes of all time, and it follows the rule of if something makes me cry, it's usually pretty good. And I think this is just fantastic storytelling. It's fantastic telly, and if you haven't seen it, if for some reason you're listening to this podcast and you've not seen this episode, you should watch the episode. It's like even outside of Star Trek, even if you don't like sci-fi, this is just fantastic storytelling and really well presented.
It was such a surprise because season 5 was so strong anyway, and to get this right at the end of the season, where usually people were a bit baggy and tired, and they're just stretching it out. But we got this right at the end of the season. That's quite amazing, actually.
Yeah,
the energy, and the talent. I mean, Patrick Stewart really carries this, but he does it effortlessly. Really,
yeah. He likes it so much. He brought his son on, right, to play his son, which is incredible.
So, like I said, I mean, I don't. There's nothing that makes me cry that I watch, apart from the Iron Giant. Maybe, right?
Oh man, yeah. I hear that.
But yes, it's quite a moving and profound episode, is what I'd say. I'll go back to again. If you find Groundhog Day a movie, you'll find this one. If it's just a bit of fun, then you'll find this a bit of fun, and that's fine. That's fine. It doesn't matter. But if you want to immerse yourself in this, just be aware if you're a new parent, it can be quite affecting this particular episode.
For sure. With the current world and the things that are happening, and you think about the future of our children and things. Yeah, there's some parallels to be drawn for sure. It's pretty heavy stuff.
Yes. Okay, let's wind up there.
On that bombshell.
On that bombshell. Yeah, we'll start using that one. One thing we'll say is it's my pick next time, and we've done 3 quite serious episodes, in my opinion. Darmok, Yesteryear, and The Inner Light. I'm going to tell you which era of Star Trek, and I'm going to tell you the nature of the episode, but that's it, right? And what I mean by the nature is I want fun. We're having going to a fun episode.
Plenty of that.
A throwaway, goofy, standard kind of original series. Original series is what we're doing. We're going back to original series. Wait. Something colourful and bright, and it's going to be a fun one. But other than that, I won't say anymore. So yeah, that'll just switch up a bit. So we're still doing Star Trek, basically.
I'm excited.
So, yes. That winds up this episode. So to all our listeners, peace and long life.
And live long and prosper.